Hey guys, I'm Torie, and you're listening to That Girl, the podcast. Grab a beverage of choice and settle in because the new episode is starting now. Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl, Torie, and I'm back with a whole new podcast episode. In today's podcast episode, we're going to be talking about something a little different. Before I jump in, no, I'm not talking about That Girl, the podcast when I talk about something being canceled. I'm talking about the trend of that girl. So just a little FYI, I'm not going anywhere, but I do want to talk about the canceling of that trend, so to speak, and what that means for the podcast and like basically the differences between that trend and the podcast, as well as the similarities, and kind of how we're gonna continue to do things and what that means in comparison to the trend. I'm also just going to talk about some things that are on my mind. It's going to be a really chill episode. My outline is really minimal because I just kind of want to talk about what's going on in my life. So after we talk about that girl, we are going to jump into some things like new business ventures I'm working on, just kind of like how I'm feeling in terms of motivation and things like that and what I'm doing to work through it. So I think this is going to be a really good episode. It's going to be a little bit more, I think, emotionally charged, so to speak, compared to like my episodes where I'm just 100% talking about a topic that I've researched or some stories or whatever, like story times. But yeah, I can't talk today as usual. You guys know on Wednesdays I film straight after work, so my brain is just not working at full capacity today. But before I jump in, of course, I have to do a little life update. So let's see what's going on. Josh was on PTO. He was on a little life break, lifecation from work. So he went back today, which is good, I guess. It's gonna be sad that he's like working and I'm not gonna see him as much, but it is good that the house isn't gonna be like as dirty because he's not gonna be here to like make a mess, which if you know, you know. Like if you live with a partner, you know, you know. So really sad he's gonna not be around as much, though. It's kind of nice just having him here all the time, and it's gonna be weird to get used to it again. In terms of the lucky girl syndrome, of course I'm gonna update you guys. I'm gonna talk about it more in this episode, but really I'm kind of adjusting my approach to it. I think that there still hasn't been any big things. There's been little things here and there, like we were kind of stressing about rent, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but Josh makes beats for, it's not for a living, it's kind of like a side hustle. He makes beats, he does music production, and he like coincidentally sold a beat like last minute out of nowhere. We were not expecting that, and we were able to like kind of pay rent, and it gave us a little bit of a cushion there. So that was a lucky girl moment. Just little things like that have happened, nothing insanely crazy, but I do want to talk about that. There has been a spike in podcast views, which is lucky girl because girl, I loved it. It just makes me so happy to know that you guys enjoy the podcast and want to hear it and just listen and binge, and like it's a dream come true for me. So that was definitely a moment. It was crazy. I just checked the views and there was like a huge spike like 2 days ago, I think, and I was like, heck yeah. So that was really exciting. But other than that, there's really no life updates going on. I still don't feel amazing. I'm still kind of like sluggish and trying to get over being sick. I went to a cycle bar class the other day, which cycling isn't really my thing to begin with, but I was doing it for like a charity that I really love and adore, and they paired with our work and we're doing like a charity bike. So I went, didn't even make it through the warm up, guys, or warm up. I had to literally walk out, and I was high-key really embarrassed, but you know, you gotta do what's best for your health, even if it's gonna leave you really embarrassed and sad. But yeah, I've been really taking it slow since then. That was kind of a little wake-up call that even though I think I'm better, I may not be better. But I'm trying to still do things like clean the house and stay on top of everything, even though I don't feel amazing. So we'll see where that balance comes. After this, I'm literally gonna take the warmest shower and just have a little self-care night, and like a quick one, my really quick self-care routine, and then I'm just gonna lay in my bed and edit, maybe do some dishes later, but it's gonna be really calm and chill. I'm trying to be in my soft living era, which I'm also gonna talk about later. So that's why. But that's it for life updates. Before I jump in, don't forget to subscribe, follow, all those good things. I post every Wednesday and Sunday a podcast episode. And if you want to follow me on Instagram or TikTok, it is at thatgirlthepod. And I post on there almost every day, if it's on an Instagram story or a post, and funny little TikToks, because I like to think I have a sense of humor sometimes. Oh, also really quick, I also started posting podcasts on Rumble, which is a new like social media thing that's coming out. So if you have Rumble, I'm available on there as well. If you're watching from Rumble, hey girl, hey, welcome to the community. We would love it if you joined us on a bi-weekly basis. Is it semi-weekly or bi-weekly? Let me know if you have the ability to comment. I need to know if it's bi-weekly or semi-weekly, because I've never been good at that kind of stuff. All right, so let's jump on in. Like I mentioned, That Girl, the podcast, is not going anywhere, but I'm sure you have noticed it's kind of slowly happened over a while. That Girl, the trend where it's like this girl that gets up at 6 a.m. and goes running and drinks matcha and has a green smoothie and all that good stuff, the trend has kind of turn around and become a negative thing and has a negative connotation to it. A lot of people have started saying that it can be really, really toxic for some girlies, because if you can't become that image that that girl has become, like that specific person, like it's just not realistic for you, then it can be really toxic, because it's kind of giving off the vibes that you are quote unquote not good enough, which is definitely not the narrative I want to promote here. And I don't really think, I think I've been very clear from the beginning that that is not the image I want to portray when I talk about That Girl, but I do want to get into it a little bit more since this has become more negative. You know, in the beginning it was about becoming this person that was like the best version of you, that is healthy and working out and all that, but I really think that it's just shifted to this specific kind of girly that we all know, that image, that is not attainable for everyone. Like it's just some things that are simply not possible. And the reason I started this podcast is because I wanted to have a raw and real podcast for my girlies that may work 8 to 5 and may not have that content creator lifestyle where you can just go to the gym whenever you want and cook food whenever you want and take a trip to freaking Dubai whenever you want. Like, that just seemed so unrealistic for me, and the podcast I was listening to had that kind of lifestyle. So that is why I made this podcast to begin with. So I really was trying to build it upon something that is not that typical That Girl image, because that's just not realistic for a majority of the population. But continuing on, I'm not going anywhere. Podcast is not going anywhere. Since this shift has come around, I really toyed with the idea of like changing the name of the podcast, and I mentioned a while ago that I might change it because it is such a common name for a podcast. There's multiple podcasts with this name, but ultimately I just decided not to, because it's so true to our brand. Is it the same That Girl that that trend was talking about? No. Could it be misinterpreted as that trend? Possibly. But I try to repeat over and over my message on the podcast, every single podcast episode. So I feel like if you even just listen to one episode, you know what That Girl means to us. What that means to us, if you're new here, is that it's just the goals you have personally set for yourself individually. That is the image of That Girl to you. So for me, my image in my head of the girl that I am striving to become, or the woman I'm striving to become, is probably totally drastically different than the girl that you are trying to become, or the woman you're trying to become. She doesn't look the same, she doesn't act the same, she doesn't have the same habits, or maybe she does, that's totally fine. The girl in my head doesn't get up at 6 a.m., but the girl in your head maybe does. The girl in my head wants to own a business while also having a 9 to 5, and the girl in your head may just want a 9 to 5, and that is totally okay. So That Girl that we are portraying in our community, and I'm so adamant about saying this, is different for every single listener. It's not that picture perfect girl that was trending. And so I think it's such an important message that I don't want to change the name and rebrand and go through all of that if it's something that I'm still very, very, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say adamant again, but it's something that I'm very, very, it's still relevant to my message that I'm trying to get across, if that makes sense. I really just have been, ever since I've been put, I mean, I can't talk today. When I was in college, it was definitely more prevalent than when I was in high school, because I was in a very sheltered, small high school. But now that I'm in the workforce and just out and about in the world and talking to people every day from all different walks of life, it's a lot more adamant to me how unfair and frustrating and hard it is to be a woman in this society sometimes. And I know it ranges based on every single culture. So for me, I can only speak to the United States. I know we don't have it near as bad as other countries, so I don't want this to come across as like tone deaf, but I can only speak to the United States. It's still very frustrating to be a woman in the United States in this time, whether that's people don't act like you're qualified just based on your gender, or people having remarks towards you that you should just be cleaning a kitchen or doing this or that. It's still a very big problem in society. And I think for a lot of us, for me at least, I really struggle because the expectation that society has for me and the expectation that I have for myself do not match. And trying to meet both is extremely difficult. It's really, really hard. So I think that a big part of this podcast is just being a girl's girl and lifting each other up as women, because we don't get that from society all the time. Out in the world, outside of our community, women do hurt other women at times. They aren't always uplifting. We know for a fact that men do not lift women up at all times. Obviously, there are that group of men that are very uplifting, but there's also a large group of men that don't. And so it's just frustrating. It's hard. And that's a big part of like why I want to keep it to That Girl, because we all have goals. And this is a safe space for us to talk about those and reach those without judgment from just the day-to-day bullshit that we have to deal with. I mean, it's frustrating. It's hard. And some days it's harder than others. And some days you just want to crawl in bed and be like, I don't want to do this, but you got to. It's just, this is just me ranting because it's just so frustrating being an adult and being a woman and the things you have to deal with. You know, whether your issues or whether the little remarks made or whether the attitudes are less harmful than the things that other people may experience, that doesn't mean that they're not valid. So this is a safe space for you to just be like, damn, that was hard, that was annoying, I didn't like that. And I just want to let you guys know that I'm here for you. We're all here for you, and we are all girls. We are all about lifting each other up. We are not judgmental. If your goal is to run a marathon, I'm gonna tell you right now, I will never be the type of girl to run a marathon. I don't run, first off, but I don't understand like what goes into running a marathon because it's never been an interest of mine. However, I will be there to support you, and if it is possible, I will literally be on the sidelines rooting you on the day of your marathon, because it's important to you and not enough people uplift other people. You know what I'm saying? So like, I will rally for you. I will go to bat for you, because I just don't feel like there's enough of that in 2023. And it's so sad that it's 2023 and we still have to deal with the same bullshit. But I'm fired up about it because it's just really been on my mind lately. And I wanted to talk about like the canceling, kind of shifting gears. I wanted to talk about like the canceling of That Girl and the trend for a while, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And then it kind of just led me to the thought of like being judgmental in general, or like not being enough, and just the pressures of feeling like you're constantly not enough in your own society and having to live up to expectations that are more often than not unrealistic. I was listening to a podcast today, and it was Drew, I don't want to pronounce her last name wrong. She's the queen, Drew Afalo. Okay, if I pronounced it wrong, so sorry. But she basically just hates on men and has a career out of it, and I love that for her. But one of the things they were talking about is how whether you are in a culture where you are the woman who is the breadwinner, or whether you are in a culture where you are the woman who cleans the house, has the babies, whatever, you're still pretty much expected to do it all. And it's hard. Like, no matter what, women go through a lot of shit, and we have a lot of expectations. We have a lot of responsibilities, and it's really hard. So it just kind of opened my eyes to like, damn, ain't that the truth? Like, we don't give ourselves enough credit, and I'm here to give you credit for the little things you've achieved, for the big things you've achieved. If you got out of bed today, let me know, because I want to literally pat you on the back, send you even a little gift if I can, like, just to be like, you got up today, you did that damn thing, because it's hard. It is difficult, mamacita, and I just love women. Like, I tell Josh all the time, I'm like, you are the one exception. It's not that I necessarily hate men, I just like, no one does it better, you know? Like, we love women. Yeah, so I did have a point that I kind of want to reiterate. Like, I feel like it's a cycle of trying to live up to these expectations, and why should we get caught up in it when we could just do our own personal best? And that's kind of what I want to talk about. Like, who cares? At the end of the day, if you don't reach the expectation that a man set for you, who cares? Should they really be someone that you have around you to begin with? I understand if it's like your boss or something. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, you have your own personal best. You have your own expectations. And as long as you are striving to do your best each and every day, even if you have a down day, your best looks different every single day. Your best may be getting out of bed one day, and your best may be completing a huge project that is worth so many points in school the next day. As long as you do your best, who cares about anybody else's expectations for you? And that is what I really want to drive home. You are not put on this earth to please others. I believe I was put on this earth to cause a commotion. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I would love for it to be good. I want to have a positive impact on the world. I've talked about that before. But I'm definitely here to cause a commotion and not go with the waves of life. So that's firmly what I believe. My best is not going to look like everybody else. I'm not meant to be doing what everybody else is doing. And yeah, don't get so caught up in the frustrating cycle of everybody else's objectives for you that they have placed on you, because at the end of the day, literally, who cares? That one person that set them, okay, let them be mad. You're doing great things that may not be in their agenda for you, but they make you happy, so literally, who cares? That's pretty much it in terms of that topic. Now I just want to talk about all the things that have really been on my mind lately, because I need to get them out to somebody, and this is really how I work through, process new ideas that I have, things that I'm frustrated with, anything else. And I kind of want to like show you guys my problem solving vibes, like my process. And if you also want to give me advice or talk through things more with me that I say, if anything resonates with you and you want to talk more about it, definitely let me know. If you can't comment below, or if you don't feel comfortable commenting publicly, just DM me on That Girl the Pod on Instagram, and I would love to talk about it with you. Completely switching gears. I used to have a Etsy, and it was where I sold Taylor Swift merch, but it wasn't like copyrighted or anything. I literally drew, like graphic designed Taylor Swift merch and sold it on Etsy. And the reason I stopped is because the manufacturing cost on top of the Etsy cut was so much that I wasn't making like enough money, even with the orders I was getting, for it to even matter. Like, sometimes I was in the deficit, and every time I would get out of that deficit, Etsy would raise the percentage that they took out of your cut. So Etsy kind of sucks for that, kind of shady, very rude. So I decided to ultimately close it down. It just wasn't as much of a priority. I have been toying with the idea of reopening either an Etsy store, selling it on Instagram. I don't want to do Shopify because that's just a whole nother platform I'm not ready for yet. And I haven't talked about it on the podcast because I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to monetize our community, because I am just talking about this because if you are interested in starting a small business, maybe you can get something out of this, just bouncing ideas. I don't expect you to purchase anything. You are not obligated to, and I don't want you to think that I'm looking at this as a way to monetize. I genuinely do this because I love it. If there's a monetization that were to come out of it, great. If there wasn't, I just love you guys. I love hanging out with you. I love talking to you, and that's that. So I don't think that I will be selling Taylor Swift merch again. Loved it, but there was a lot of like rules that you had to like work with, like trademarking, copywriting, all that. And I also don't really like Etsy. Would I ever sell on there again? Maybe. if the cost to ship and make the products was low enough that I actually saw a profitable margin off of it. But I don't know. It's more of I feel I'm backed into a corner because there's nothing else that I could sell on, essentially, where you already have like a audience to see it, like it's being pushed to an audience, because Shopify is really, really hard to push to an audience because you are working with Google Analytics, which I do have a certification in. I know how Google Analytics works. It's just a whole nother beast that you have to devote a lot of time to researching SEO and things that work. And for a passion project that is more of like a side hustle, an additional income maybe, I just don't want to put any work into that until I know it's going to be a profitable income, so to speak. Like if it becomes something that I would be doing full time, then I would consider it. But if it's just like a little fun side project, it's not worth all the time for me. And on another note, I'm also doing the podcast and working full time, and I still have like friends, family, Josh, like things I need to be doing to be a functioning person in society that I just can't like add another thing on my plate to. So what I was thinking is I really enjoy crocheting and I really enjoy resin. I like making resin molds that have like crystals in them, dried flowers, fun little side projects. I put little beads in them. I also crochet like everything. My most recent project is I'm crocheting plants because I can't have plants in my office because it's not close to a window and I don't want them to die, so I've been crocheting plants. I've made bookmarks, I've made bandanas for my dog. I want to make bags and sweaters, but there's all these fun things that I make. And outside of crocheting and resin, I make all kinds of random things that I just don't have room for in my house anymore. And I'm not going to toot my own horn, but they're pretty cute. And I just can't keep boxes and boxes of random things that I made and I don't really have a use for in my house. It stresses Josh out, it stresses me out, even though I enjoy making it. Like I truly enjoy the process of making it. It's very therapeutic to me, and that's kind of why I didn't really want to turn it into a business, because I didn't want to mix pleasure and work and make it really stressful. That being said, I am toying with the idea of just throwing things on my Instagram as I make them on the podcast Instagram and being like, hey, would anyone be interested in purchasing this? And it's always trendy, it's always up to date. I can post some stuff literally tonight, but I don't know. I'm probably gonna do it. I've thought about this today. Like I was thinking about it at lunch or at work. As I was working and doing my little tippy taps on my computer, I was just like brainstorming ways that I could do this without using Etsy or making it a big deal or like starting a whole new project. So I'm thinking of doing this and then starting a highlight on my Instagram that would be called like The Market or something cute. And then you can just shop that stuff. And all of it would be one of a kind. However, if I were to sell it and you were to be like, yo, I would love you to make, like for you to make another one of these, I would probably do that. And then I can like customize colors and stuff as well, if it's like resin or crocheting or something like that. I don't know. So I've just been toying with this, but also if you have ADHD, you know that we hyperfixate on things. So we pick up a new thing, spend a bunch of money on it, get really, really good at it, or we don't, and then we move on to the next thing because it bores us. That is what I don't want to happen. I don't want to, anything with this podcast, I try to think about it for at least like 2 weeks before I get into it, because I don't want to do something impulsively and then not live up to the expectation that I have pretty much laid out for you guys. So that's where I'm at right now with it. Let me know your thoughts. If it's something you would be interested in, I would love to do it. It wouldn't be anything expensive at all. It'd probably be like $5 and like maybe like $2 for shipping if it's domestic. Like nothing crazy at all. Just something to like pay for shipping, honestly, and like materials. Like nothing big at all. It's more of like a fun thing that I want to do, and then if it were to get big enough, like maybe do something with it then. It's just like a fun thing I do to pass the time. I like to crochet instead of meditating these days because I've been having a hard time focusing, honestly. So it's just like to give me a project to work on instead of just crocheting random things and throwing them in the corner of my room. On that note, kind of like in general, I just feel lately I have felt extremely overwhelmed with life because I feel so strongly that there's something I'm meant to be doing, but I don't know what it is. And it's really hard because I just like want to be doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I want it to feel natural and feel right, but I don't know what it is. And it's really hard to just be like I just constantly feel uncomfortable because I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something because I don't know what it is, and I've just been doing all the things that I normally do because what else can I, like, I'm not gonna start something if I don't know what that something is. So that's fun, just little demons I've been wrestling with, and it's really hard. And obviously I love the podcast. I feel like I'm meant to be doing this for sure, but I've been going through a season of like, it's a little bit more stagnant until a few days ago when we got a bunch of views, which is crazy. It's been pretty stagnant, which is not a bad thing. It's not like we've been decreasing, but we've just kind of been where we're at. And then whenever we're just like coasting and not really gaining or losing, it makes me question if this is what I'm meant to be doing, if it's a sign or whatever, which is something I've actually learned is a problem. It's self-sabotaging. If you're not into this kind of stuff, no biggie, but for me, I personally am. I'm really into angel numbers, first off. And if you're familiar with angel numbers, saying 555 means that your angels are telling you that something big is coming, a big change is coming. Obviously, it means something different to everyone, but generally, the general consensus is that a big change is coming. And I found that that's true for me. Whenever I see 555 a ton, a big change comes. It happens when I met Josh, it happened when I graduated, it happened when I moved. Always a big thing. And sometimes I know what that big thing is, and sometimes I don't. And there has been 555 everywhere the past like week or so. And sometimes I see it for a couple of days and then something happens. Sometimes I see it for like a month and then something happens. It's not like a set number of days, and I don't know what the big change is this time. So I'm really freaked out because I don't know if it's good or bad. Sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's really good. But either way, I'm panicking because I don't know what it is, and I hope it's something amazing. I also personally do tarot cards. I have a lot of anxiety, so I like to know exactly what my guardian angels are telling me. I don't like second guessing. So I personally use it as a way to communicate with